Welcome everybody to the Dad's Doomsday Guide. Today we have an awesome guest on the show, 10th Planet Jiu Jitsu black belt, Brandon McCaghren. Brandon earned his black belt under Eddie Bravo and has established a massively successful career teaching and competing, guarding a huge social media following and a fantastic YouTube channel where he offers a lot of endless, awesome content. And we'll be sure to link that below so you guys can check that out. Make sure you do. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. Hey,
glad to be here. What's happening?
I guess to start, because I have a little martial arts background. My brother and I did Shaolin Kempo growing up.
Okay.
Which was Ralph Castro in the Bay Area. And I believe Ed Parker did American Kempo. My history on that's really rusty.
Yeah, that's right.
What got you into martial arts? And then I think I read you are black belt in other martial arts as well.
Yeah.
What got you started in all this?
So my parents both did Taekwondo, but I didn't think it was cool growing up. You know what I mean? So I didn't really pursue that at all as a kid. I didn't get into it until me and my wife really started getting into the UFC, just like from a fan perspective.
Okay.
Right. And so, but I wasn't really doing anything. I was getting out of shape. So my wife sat me down on the couch one day. She's like, "Hey, you're kind of getting fat. Why don't we go and try to learn martial arts?" I was like, "Okay, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to run. I don't really want to eat right. I will if I have to, but I will go try martial arts if we can learn how to do this fighting stuff."
Yeah.
So that's what I thought I was getting into. But anyway, so yeah, we ended up getting our black belts together in Tung Soo Do, Mudok Kwan, which is it's like Taekwondo sort of.
Okay.
And from a guy named Jamie Webster, who was awesome. And I was really lucky to have him as a martial arts mentor to open up. He encouraged me to branch out and learn as much as I could from other sources, and really take what works. The same idea that Bruce Lee had, to adapt what works for you, and then just kind of discard what doesn't make that much sense for you. And so I just started to go down the grappling rabbit hole then.
Okay.
And then I got hooked up with Eddie Bravo, learning from him out in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just been kind of dorking out on jiu-jitsu ever since then. But go ahead.
Did you guys live in LA at the time then for you to be getting?
No, we lived out here. We lived out here. I met Eddie at a seminar. So one of the guys that I was just doing MMA with, we studied Tung Soo Do, but on the weekends we all thought we were fighters. We're all trying to learn how to fight and stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the guys that I was doing MMA with was like, "Hey, there's this guy named Eddie Bravo who's going to be teaching a seminar down in Birmingham." I was like, "Oh, cool. Who's Eddie Bravo?" He's like, "Trust me, you're going to like this." And so we went down there, and yeah, that's where I met Eddie. Just that gym that was there, it doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
But, it was called Outlaw MMA, I think was the name of it. No, the Shadow MMA was the name of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you have that moment where a lot of people do, and I had it relatively recently because I was, traditional martial arts. I don't know. I think there's some good stuff in there. And like you said, a lot of traditional martial arts, as I was going through it, they start incorporating other things. Like I remember doing a lot of judo throws and stuff within Shaolin Kempo, even though that's probably not part of the original stuff. Did you have that moment where you did some grappling and were like, "Oh, I should know this. I should learn some of this"?
Well, we learned a bit of grappling from the jump when we started taking Tung Soo Do, because Jamie was just such a well-rounded martial artist himself that he was teaching Tung Soo Do as his main style, but he required, if you wanted to be a black belt from him, you had to know a little bit about grappling.
Okay.
Like you had to know a little bit about how to run this weapon right here. And you had to know a little bit about forms and kata. You know what I mean? Like, you had to be able to run a little bit of like kind of old school self-defense. You had to be able to do a couple of judo throws. So you had to be a little bit sharp with boxing. So he required you to at least get beyond that I know nothing level in a lot of different things. And so, I knew that grappling was going to be really hard because they had already been kicking my butt a little bit. And,
Okay.
but I will tell you, man, that the first time that I rolled with Eddie when I was a white belt, we rolled at that thing down there in Birmingham. I just remember being blown away by like when he put his big old hands on me, dude. It's like, how does this guy have such big hands? It just felt like I couldn't get away from him no matter what. He wasn't even, I was used to like people holding you like with the thumb, but most jiu-jitsu guys, great grapplers, a lot of times they'll just hook you right there and you can't get away. You're like, he's not even holding me and I can't get away from him. I'll never forget that. It's burned into my memory.
Now, do you kind of, I don't know, I feel like traditional martial arts takes a lot of flack recently, maybe rightly so, and like this self-defense street fighting type, what would actually work if you got into a situation. Do you buy into that, or are you grateful kind of for your Taekwondo initial start? I mean, did that open up? I've heard people say, that opens up like flexibility and like kicking and things you won't necessarily learn doing straight grappling.
I'm very grateful for that. Yeah, I think it was better that I started with an art like that rather than just trying to learn the fighting part right away. Like I think it was good to have a base style and maybe not even one, I didn't always like it, you know what I'm saying? But I finished it because I trusted where my coach was taking me. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, it did end up, once I got my black belt, you're kind of free to explore a little bit more, Up until black belt, I just wanted to do what he had me focused on. And so, I'm running forms and doing stuff that I didn't really want to do. But I think now, especially I'm 41 now, and I've been involved in martial arts every single day for the last 15 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think now more so than when I became a black belt in Tang Soo Do, I think now I see the value in some of those things, like just doing the parts that you don't want to do, but doing them with excellence anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see a lot more value in that than I did when I was going through it initially. So yeah, I'm super grateful for and again, man, Jamie was just such a great mentor to have from a broad martial arts perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't sold into this idea that there's this one elite style that beats all other styles. Mm-hmm. He was interested in really trying to take what made the most sense for him and his, prior knowledge, what makes the most sense, and let's apply that and try to make practice of it.
Now, I don't know, do you have kids, or if you'd rather not?
Yeah, I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Okay. Yeah. So I have 5, 3, and 1. And, it's terrible. Dude, I love them to death, but my God, it's like, we were really lucky to have my first as a little girl, and she's such a sweetheart, and she's like, takes care of like the other ones, and it's kind of like just a good kid. But man, my 2 boys, they're terrible.
Oh, they're rough, dog.
they're terrible. And I'm like,
it's the opposite for me. My son is the oldest, and he is a lover. Like, he's just, oh my goodness, he wants to cuddle with his sister, and and she's just like, don't touch me ever. And then she runs over, like smashes something with her face. She's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like, my brother has, I think, his daughter, and she's I think more like just kind of outgoing and all that, and like aggressive and stuff. And they just had their second, so we'll see how she turns out too. But for your kids, would you have them do, 1, would you make them do martial arts? 2, would have them take kind of a similar path? Like, hey, go get exposed to like these variety of martial arts out there, and then kind of focus on something if you want to later? Or are you like, hey, it's got to be jiu-jitsu?
I'll tell you what I did with my kids. So they're 16 and 13 now. I'll tell you what I've done. So when they were little, we started them out with, just like little kid karate. Mm-hmm. Just anything. Just put on your little uniform and let's learn to tie that belt. Yeah. And don't worry about turning you into a deadly killer at age 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about that. But what I would like is for you to learn and have good behaviors, good discipline reinforced as like, oh, that's a good idea. Like, okay, everybody stands in this line. Okay. Yeah. Good. You stand in the line and learning to be still, learning to listen when the coach is talking. Oh, okay. I like that so I think you can get that in a lot of different ways when they're 4. Mm-hmm. But I think the martial arts does a great job with that. And then as they got older, what I kind of let them go their own way. Like Keller, he didn't like the jiu-jitsu as much. My son, he doesn't care for the jiu-jitsu as much, but he did enjoy striking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh yeah, we'll just go over there and work on that striking for about a year or two, he didn't really do jiu-jitsu at all. He just went and did striking, and didn't even take that very seriously. But that's okay. You know, I'm not looking for you to be the world champion. I just want you to be competent amongst your peers.
Yeah.
And because just the confidence that you walk around with when you have a competency, it changes things.
Isn't that interesting? I wanted to talk to you about that. It's like, because I started doing jiu-jitsu really recently, and I didn't get very far into it. Still like a really beginner white belt. And then my dad passed away, and then that led right into COVID, and then they shut down the school.
Yeah.
And then, but just that brief moment, and when I trained before, because you'd have Muay Thai guys coming in, you'd have like other guys coming in and get exposed to all that. But there's I don't know if you can articulate it, but there's like an odd sense of confidence that not that I can go beat people up. It's just like you carry yourself better. You feel like you don't need to have conflict with people. You feel like you can de-escalate easier. Like, what is all that about? Is it just the fact that you know you could handle something if it happened?
You know, I think that once you know, like, not believe, but know that you have a skill, it could really be anything, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be martial arts, but when it happens to be that skill is I don't want to say in violence, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, when it happens to be that skill is in combat sport, let's say that, man, it's much easier for you to feel like you don't have to impress anyone. And that allows you to be yourself, which means that you're not always dealing with these insecurities during conversations and during encounters. Like, what does this dude think about me? It doesn't matter what you think about me. I like me. I'm very skilled. Like, when you have a skill in one area, it gives you an opportunity to go, oh no, I'm capable and good. And you can just walk around with your head higher like that. So and the only way to get that is to have this one thing that you really are passionate about and like in pursuit of excellence with.
No, it's a good way of putting it. I just don't, and I don't know if everybody kind of has had that feeling. I don't know, because in today's day and age, you know, to pursue something of excellence, like, because I did basketball too growing up, and I just was obsessed with it, and I wanted to be pro, and I went to college playing.
But I wasn't very good. That was the difference. But I did love it, like I wanted to be. Yeah,
and it's like and I guess there's a kind of a double-edged sword with that, because now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, I know how many hours it takes, how much repetition it takes to be excellent at something. Yeah. So it gives me a better perspective of like, do I want to go down that road because I know what it takes to be good? And am I okay not being at that level if I don't do it, you know, every day, all day?
That's the battle as we age.
Yeah.
So how old are you?
39, just turned 39.
39. So we're pretty close. I'm 41. Yeah. We're pretty close to the same age. Yeah. So that's what's beautiful about jiu-jitsu though, is having a certain skill level really allows me to play the game at the pace that I want to play it at in the training room. Especially if I I already know I'm good, right? I've proved to myself that I'm good. I don't really need you to know that I'm good. And so that frees me to let the training be whatever we need it to be today. It doesn't have to be a thing where I have to go and beat you every single round, because I don't care if you're impressed by me. I'm already impressed by myself. And so I'm free to enjoy the training in a different way. Once you got to kind of move past that stage where you're like, well, I'm here to compete and find out who's the best.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's one of my frustrations when I was starting to do jiu-jitsu, is that I can't commit in my 20s I could, like when I did Shaolin Kempo again, I was like every day, that's all I did. My brother was running to school day in and day out. I can't commit that time now. So I was going like twice a week. And even with the little that I did, it showed me a lot about myself. And you hear people say that all the time about jiu-jitsu, because you're going in like a spar or a roll and you're going like darn near 100% in some cases. And it pushes you to a limit to where like it kind of shows you a little bit about yourself. Like for me, it was like claustrophobia, like getting pressed down on top of me.
It's wild, right?
Oh my God. I had a moment I felt so ashamed. I let the dude tap me just so I could get out of that fear of the claustrophobia. I went home and I like watched videos and I was like learning how to make more space. And then I went back and I said, okay, I'm just going to get into that position again. I'm going to let him get in that position again. I'm going to see how long I can handle it for. How long can I try to get out of it before I panic and have to get out? And it really helped. But like I never would have been in that situation ever in my life if I hadn't done that. And I think that's a huge plus, and that's why I liked it. I liked jiu-jitsu so much more than I thought I would, because I was like, stand-up striking more. But it was like incredible to me that they could teach you so much about just life and getting pushed to that edge, which I think today, I mean, in what situation?
It's not happening very often.
Yeah.
It's not happening very often to very many of us.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a beautiful thing also. That's great that we live in a time when we don't really have to push ourselves to the limit, when we get the choice to, take it easy if we want. But so it's great that things are peaceful like that, but it does breed a certain type of person, and if you want to step outside of that, then you almost have to seek it for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, that's such a weird situation. I guess it's like, it's that book where it's The Fourth Turning. I haven't read it yet, but I keep hearing it over and over again about how the cycles, like soft men breathe, hard time, all that circle. And I feel like we're in that position now because you're 100% right. In most cases, you don't get confronted with that, especially living in America, unless you seek it out. And because we don't, like, we're made for confrontation. And so I don't even necessarily mean violence, but like we're survival creatures. You know what I'm saying? In your opinion, is there a striking style? Like, I know there's no one best style, but if you were to say, hey, let's talk about, if you like striking, what styles are best? Is there one that you would say, hey, that's probably the best avenue to go down?
Muay Thai. I would say Muay Thai.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I would say boxing would be the thing that I wanted to learn after that. Really any style of like what we think of when we think of traditional martial arts that focuses on kicking, I think you need to at least dip into that too and learn how to kick the way that they do. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important. And I think you see there's a lot of guys in the UFC that have background in traditional styles, and that helps to influence what they're capable of as they're striking and they're kind of like base level. Like you need at least Muay Thai and boxing experience, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But if you want to flourish it up and cover some of your holes or something like that with your Tung Soo Do or your Korean styles or Japanese styles of kicking and stuff, then I think there's a great place for those as well. Mm-hmm. They don't really work out as a great base striking style usually.
You're talking about like karate or something else. Yeah, like when you talk about forms and katas, and it's funny because like Sean Campbell all it was, as you're learning different moves, and it's like you get into those movements, but then you watch like a boxer or a Muay Thai guy, and you're like, oh, that's a little different.
Well, yeah, just any art where you don't actively spar, like I don't want to say full contact, but you with consequence, there should be some kind of consequence. Like, oh, I don't want to do that way again. That hurt. Yeah. There should be some consequence. So any style where you're not doing that regularly, like it to me, at least doing that as much as you're taking in instruction, then I think you're not going to be able to do it. You won't do it that way when it comes to a fight. Yeah.
And that's one of the knocks I had with a lot of sparring with traditional martial arts. It's like tag. Basically, yeah. I mean, you're just like tapping heads. I mean, some of the black belts, you get caught with a kick or something that can kind of get you. But yeah, it was. I guess
what's great about those styles, though, is because they limit the rules so tightly. You have to learn to specialize in this really certain way of doing things, right? Mm-hmm. Well, turns out that there's a place for that kind of kick as well. It's just not as your main style generally in the UFC. Like you see Stephen Thompson use it as his main style, or Lyoto Machida used to use it as his main style. And there are other examples now, but it works best when as a flavoring. It's like sprinkles on top.
That's a good way of putting
it. And then you see a guy like Yair Rodriguez, for instance. He's got great boxing, great traditional martial arts style, and great Muay Thai style as well. And so he can incorporate a lot of these things into a full stand-up fighting package. Max Holloway, a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
What is it about jiu-jitsu that makes it so effective? Because like when I started,
it's the sparring.
Okay.
Like it's active resistance every day.
Okay.
Like, okay, here's this cool move. Okay, now I'm going to try to stop you from doing that to me. And let's see how that really plays out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's there can be no room for BS. Either you can do this or you can't.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think
I like that.
Yeah, that's very true. And I just remember doing it, and I had, at first when you start, because I was always like, I'm tall, fast, I could pass people, you know what I mean? Like when they're a white belt. And then all of a sudden, as soon as they learn technique, and like that was kind of that's what I wanted to kind of touch on earlier now before my son popped in. But I was getting frustrated because I was only able to go like a couple times a week. Some people were going 5 days a week. Yeah. And then you very quickly see the gap start to open up a little bit. And the technique, as soon as they applied something, I was like, oh, I can't do that anymore at all. Because I'm operating still on like, I'm just going to rush past you. It's like, that doesn't work anymore. And I had guys, half my size tapping me out. And I was just like, oh man, it's so humbling. And I think that's really good. But I guess, I don't know if you have other students who ever expressed that, is how do you kind of handle the frustration if you're only able to go, especially when you're older, different commitments, you're not able to go all the time. And I'm a very competitive person. So it's like not being able to you kind of have to just accept it. I mean, how do you kind of articulate that to your students?
Well, so I think part of it is managing expectations, but I think part of it also is like, let's actually define what your goal is. Mm-hmm. What are you actually trying to accomplish by being here? Because a lot of my students, they just thought it looked cool because they saw it on a UFC video game. You know what I mean? Or a lot of them just thought that Eddie Bravo sounded cool when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. You know what I'm saying? So they're not coming in with goal sets really, even in the beginning, not even thinking in goal sets. It's just like, I needed some exercise. This sounded like a cool way to try it. Or, you know what I'm saying? So of course there's some people who are like, yo, I'm here to fight. And there's some people who are like, yeah, I know what jiu-jitsu is. I'm trying to learn it. But generally speaking, the average student, they're just trying something new and trying something fun for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
So,
that makes sense. I mean, it's because I heard, and you can tell me if it's true, but for an average person, is it 10 years to a black belt?
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. So this will further elaborate on the question you asked me. I think it's a mistake really to think in terms of years. You really need to think in terms of hours on the mat. And so to your question of what do you tell somebody who's, look, they're training 2 days a week and then their peers, the people they started at the same time with, some of these kids, they're 25 and they're training 5 days a week, twice a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do I keep up with them? Because I want to be good. I don't want to be the old guy who just shows up and gets his butt kicked. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to be good at this, right? So that's the guy I'm talking to now. Then you need to hey, listen, I've only got 2 hours to work with on Tuesday and I got 2 hours to work with on Thursday. You need to make an action-packed 2 hours then. And you need to come in with specific goals in mind. And you need to come in with your training time efficient and organized. And when it's time, when people are taking breaks between rounds, of course you're not taking breaks between rounds because you got work to do. But we need to define what your actual goal set is. Maybe your goal set isn't to become as good as you can be with the hours that you have. Okay, well then I'm not going to push on you. I'm going to let you use jiu-jitsu for what you need it for. But if you're telling me you want to be good, then we're going to have to get you, if I got 4 hours to work with, they need to be 4 good hours.
Yeah.
Because some people are going to come in and they're going to be 5 days a week kind of people, but they're not going to stay busy at practice kind of people. They're going to be culture kind of people. Mm-hmm. They're in there it's just good exercise and this is their vibe. You know what I mean? And there's a crew of those guys too. Mm-hmm. And they're going to get good just by, to stay around the barbershop long enough, you're bound to get a haircut. You know what I'm saying? Those kind of guys. Yeah. And that's I'm a hard worker, but that's kind of me a little bit. Like I'm a gym rat, dude. Yeah. So the hours stack up for a guy like that. But if you've only got 4 hours a week to give to it, you got to make sure that those 4 hours are focused.
Yeah. No, you'd see that a lot. Some people will do reps kind of like just kind of cruising. Other people are like really dialing in.
And that's okay. It just depends on what your goal set is.
Yeah.
If you're just like, I think I need to get this, I need to do a couple of reps so I can actually understand how I'm supposed to be moving here. Okay, I got it. Thanks. Good job. Or if you're like, no, I need to master this movement. Well, that's 2 different types of reps.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, I just let people set their own goals, but I want them to understand what they're actually like. What are you actually here to do? So like, let's talk about your goal set, what it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to help you approach your practice in a different way. I'm going to help the guy who just, wants to get away from his wife griping at him for an hour. So that's some of the students too. You know what I mean? it's either here or the bar. I'm much rather you be here.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense because everything else, whether it's they say 1,000 hours to get perfection at something or proficient at something, or like all the hours I put into a gym and basketball or whatever else it is. And then with jiu-jitsu, it's kind of tough because you can't go home necessarily and do reps. You don't have a sparring buddy
tough.
at home.
You need a body.
Yeah. So I was like, I'd be like, hey, my wife, come over here for a second. I was like trying to like.
And it's not the same in that regard either because they don't know what they're doing either.
No.
And so it's not only do you need a body, but you need a body that knows it better than you do.
Yeah.
To really learn it.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough to get good, man. Most people don't get good, much less very good, much less great. That's a long process, dude.
What level would you classify as good for jiu-jitsu, or where you're able to handle someone who doesn't know it on the street, right? So like from a self-defense point of view, what would qualify for you as like, okay, you're solid enough to have a step up on those people? I
tell people, I say this all the time, that by the time you hit purple belt, you should feel like a demigod to most people. Like just like, oh, hey, we're hanging out at Thanksgiving. And I think I'd like to try that UFC stuff. Like, no, you don't. Trust me, bro. I'm a purple belt. And then you dismantle your family member. Like, they think they can't tell the difference between a black belt and a purple belt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they never trained. So purple belt, you should be a god to those kind of people.
Yeah. A couple of times I roll with a purple belt, I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. You know what I mean? It's just like,
yeah, I do.
You think, like a competency difference with like another martial art or whatever. And like, I never saw one so striking in jiu-jitsu from like white to purple. Like purple in other styles for me was like, a little bit more. Yeah, but this
purple,
was like
purple. You're usually looking at somebody that's been training for 5 years pretty seriously by the time they hit purple belt.
Yeah, that was.
Or by the time they hit to like a good purple belt. A fresh purple belt, sometimes can be less than that, but yeah.
What is
purple
it about?
Belt in jiu-jitsu is pretty serious. Like that means you're really committed to doing it. Like you got past, most people stop at blue belt because it's just it's kind of probably a 2-year process just to get out of that white belt. You know what I mean? And you're getting your butt kicked. And the first, if that's the top of the funnel, that's where the most people are going to fall out.
Okay. I was going to ask you when most people stop and it's blue.
Most people stop at white belt.
Oh yeah.
Because they never make it to blue belt, and that's,
yeah.
So naturally the next one was the most people stop at blue belt. But once you get past blue belt, the attrition rate goes way, way down.
Okay.
Because you're the kind of person now who can make it 5 years at a thing. And you start to think to yourself, man, if I'm the kind of person who can stick with something for 5 years, maybe I'm the kind of person who can stick with something for 10 years, even if you didn't know that about yourself before.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so you start to develop, and then way less brown belts drop off. And then most of the black belts that I know still train.
Okay.
But there are a lot of black belts that, time and injury catches up to them. I'm trying to stop that from happening to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How do you handle injuries? Because I just in the first, I think it was it was no gi. So I guess kind of a 2-question thing here for you, or maybe multi-question, because Eddie Bravo, I know is it the rubber guard that he's well known for? And just like
that's one of the things.
The flexibility that I've seen some of you guys from 10th Planet do with my hips are like rocks. Compared to that, it's terrible.
Part, yeah.
Yeah, and so I tore my LCL. I got my leg caught inside someone's, and it was no gi. So it was like, I feel like no gi, and correct me if I'm wrong because I really don't know what I'm talking about. I feel like they go after the legs a lot more, like initially.
No, that is true. That is
Because
true.
like I just remember doing it. It was like my first or second time doing it, and it was just like I think it was a brown belt, and he was just all over my legs, and I was like, oh my god. And I don't. As a white belt, you really don't know what's dangerous. So I mean, you could get into a weird spot and not tap because you're like, I think it's fine, but the next like torque and it just went boom. I could feel it pop. So I guess are the hips super flexible or should be super flexible? And if you're going to do jiu-jitsu, do you need to like work on the hip flexibility to avoid these knee injuries?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I need to
you know,
start
it's
doing
just
that.
like if you walked into a Muay Thai school, Eddie's used this analogy before, so I'll steal it from him. So you walk into a Muay Thai school and you get into class and they're saying, okay, now we're going to kick to the head. You don't go and you're like, well, I can't do that yet. What do they say to you? Oh, well, maybe you're just not the kind of guy who kicks to the head. No, they say stretch. Like, and in striking, oh, of course, yeah, that makes sense. You just stretch a little bit. But it's the same thing is true in jiu-jitsu. Just you got to learn what stretches to do with your body and what ranges you need, you know, and everybody's going to be a little bit different. So I think mobility and flexibility is one of the most important. Like in my own life, I place that above even strength, you know, as something that I want to maintain as I age out. Because I feel like mobility is the thing that wants to leave my body as I get older. So I'm fighting to hang on to that through flexibility and just keeping myself moving all the time.
I was going to say, is that kind of one of the main ways you're trying to avoid the injuries and stuff?
And well, the main way is I just changed my training style up to where I don't try to like go after your head every round, no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to win every round anymore. I'm there to train and improve my skill set and also to enjoy the art that I love the most. That's the thing that I'm there for the most. And so, you know, that means sometimes I don't feel like trying to snap your head off. But I do still a couple of times a week like to get out there and try to do my thing. You know? But I just don't do that every night anymore. But I still train. I try to just make my training longer and less intense. And I'll let you fight me, but I try to make my style so that it kind of bounces and flows off of what you're wanting to do. And I'll just meet you there rather than fighting and grinding against you.
Yeah.
And that helps me to work on improving my technique as well.
I was going to say, yeah, because I had that kind of approach at first. And then now because I'm currently looking to get back into it again, is to just be okay with trying to stomp down the competitiveness a little bit and just be like, okay, I got to learn the technique and then kind of do it safely to where I'm not injuring myself. Because I've had torn ACL and like some other stuff.
Well, I mean, think about how long it took you to learn how to really cross somebody up in basketball. Like how many reps did you have to do with that? Dude. Just carrying the basketball by yourself in your driveway. Yeah. Just, all right, I gotta relax my neck more. You know what I'm saying? You learn that the crossover is not bouncing the ball from my right hand to my left hand. It's an entire body movement. And it requires on my opponent, I get him leaning one way and then I change speed and change. You know what I'm saying? Just to learn that one move in basketball, how many hours you needed on that.
Yeah, I remember watching Allen Iverson cross over Jordan twice, and I was like, "That's what I'm going to do."
Talk about that. I don't want to talk about it. We got to change. Any other example, please? I can't hear my boy disparaged like this.
And I remember going in the front yard, and I ended up getting a really good crossover. So it's really funny that you use that as an analogy. But I can't. I would wear out shoes from sliding my foot as I move one way then the other way. I would get holes in my shoes. Wear out the
inside of this.
Yeah, I went through so many pairs, but I can't imagine how many hours I spent doing that. And I guess that's kind of what's daunting about thinking about getting really good at something else, because you're like, man, I did all that for that. I have to do all this again. And can you commit to that over the next 5 years, 10 years?
Well, all these think reps? About too, so you played college basketball, you said at D1 level or what?
Yeah, it was St. Mary's.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you took it to a pretty serious level. What percentage of people who play and enjoy basketball would you say make it to the D1 level?
Oh man, it's low. I think I've seen a percentage. Yeah, it's low.
5% make it to D1, something like. I have no idea if that's right. That could be totally inaccurate. I'm just guessing.
It's a pretty low number.
Well, do you want to spend the time required in jiu-jitsu to be one of the 5%?
Yeah.
If that's what you're trying to compare yourself to, then yeah, you're going to have to do, you got some work in front of you. You're right.
Mm.
But if you're like, you know what, man, 95% of the people in the jiu-jitsu room are not that. I just want to get out here and have fun amongst my peers. Well, you don't have as much work in front of you as you think. You got a little bit of consistency in front of you is all you got. Just 3 to 5 years of, you know what, I'm a twice a week guy, but you'll see it'll stack up. And because most of the people that you think right now, they're your peers and you're coming up with, most of those people are going to quit. Life's going to come along. They're going to have a baby and fall out. And then this guy's going to change jobs. And then this guy gets hurt and it never comes back. And then this guy just gets bored with it. And then this guy quits because he hates the coach. And eventually you're the only one left. Mm-hmm. And then the only peers you have are the ones that are still left too. And eventually they're going to quit too. So it's just, if you want to get great, it's not about who's best. It's about who's left.
No, that's good. That's a good way of putting it.
So if that's what you want for yourself, then you don't need to commit to more time per week. You need to commit to more hours overall. Mm-hmm. And the hours will stack up eventually. It's just who's going to be left, man.
Yeah. Now, if you had to pick, if you told someone gi or no gi?
I do only no gi.
Okay.
I don't do any gi at all.
Do you feel like that's more applicable to any kind of real life scenario that you run into?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I don't have an issue with training in the gi. It's just a matter of preference for me for the most part. But I think that each has its own benefit. Like training in the gi is a lot less slippery. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more handles. So I can do things to you in the gi. I can manipulate you in unnatural ways because you have this invincible jacket on. You know what I mean? And that soaks up all the sweat. Whereas if I go to no gi and try to control you in the same way, you might just rip your arm out because it's hard to hold somebody when they're sweaty. Mm-hmm. You know, and so you have to learn different things based on whether it's gi or no gi. They're sort of, I don't want to say they must be played at a different speed, but they are generally played at a different speed. So no gi is generally speaking much faster. Not always, but generally much faster. And if you want it to be a slower game because you're an older guy, then you have to learn how to play half court ball instead of just fast breaking with the kids all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if someone came to you and was like, hey, because that's how I've kind of approached this is like, I'm not really interested in competing in like tournaments or anything. I would be doing it more for just self-defense. If I get into an altercation with somebody, I can handle myself. For that, in that sense, would you say no gi?
Yeah, I would say just pick any gi or no gi and enjoy yourself.
Okay.
If you just stay around and get to like we were saying, like a purple belt level, then the self-defense stuff is going to feel real natural. Mm-hmm. You're gonna make way better decisions in a self-defense situation by that time, just by nature of being around like active resistance that much. Mm-hmm. Again, that's the most important part. I want to spend time in resistance.
And do you think there's any way of training? Because I remember when we were kind of in class and stuff, they would be showing things that would be kind of tournament centric, or something to do with some way you can manipulate something for points or whatever. Is that detrimental in any way to someone, or is it kind of like so. Okay, because you don't get
because you're still learning about how to manipulate a resisting human. Mm-hmm. So really, anytime I learn anything that works, I should be reinforcing a principle right there. So like, okay, Brandon, we're going to do this arm lock right here. Okay. Well, when you learn the arm lock, what is it made out of? It's not made out of put your hand here, lift your hips. It's made out of balance, weight distribution, leverage, timing, patience. And every technique is made out of these things. So every time I study an arm lock, yes, I am getting better at the arm lock, but really I should be deepening my mastery of these principles and breaking the arm lock into those parts. And by doing that, I learn everything at the same time. Because an arm lock is made of the same thing that a mount escape is made out of. timing, leverage, base, balance, weight distribution. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it doesn't matter which techniques we're working on as much as it matters that we're studying the art of jiu-jitsu. And whatever makes you want to train, just work on that.
Mm-hmm.
But work on it well so that you're understanding it principally. So that when you understand jiu-jitsu principally, as I present you in real time with a complex problem,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to in real time present me with a simple solution because you don't have to solve every little piece. You just apply the principles to the new situation and you're able to rectify it without too much processing power.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Very much so, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting approach. And I think, I don't know, you hear a lot of kind of going along with training criticisms. Do you buy in, or how do you respond to people who are like, oh, if you're on the ground and it's dangerous in a street fight, you don't want to be on the ground and then pulling guard. How do you approach, or, because I don't think, at what level does someone, like you said, once you're purple belt, you kind of all these self-defense techniques kind of just you start absorbing all this stuff a little bit better. As a white belt or someone learning, do you need to be cognizant of that if you do end up on your back and on?
So listen, man, a street fight's dangerous, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're on top, whether you're on bottom, whether you're on the asphalt, whether you're sitting beside the bar, whatever it is, it's a super unknown. And so we can't really train for something so wild, especially if it's going to happen on the asphalt. You know what I mean? So so first things first, anybody that tells you that they train for self-defense, if they're not training on the asphalt and scraping their face and their elbows up every night while somebody's jamming a knife at them, they're not training well, if I got into that spot, I'd just pull your eyeballs out. Let me ask you something, dude. Do you have a jar of eyeballs on the nightstand or something? Because there's no way that you know how to pull an eyeball out until you've pulled an eyeball out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. So what I like about jiu-jitsu, all of it as a practical self-defense, is not the technical part of like, what's the technique that I'm doing? It's not that part. It's that I'm spending time actively learning how to problem solve a human that does not want me to problem solve him.
Mm.
And because of that, I feel way more comfortable in whatever situation you present me with. Does that make sense?
Very much.
If I only train for this real tight scenario where the gun is right here, well, what if it's down here in this now? You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, shoot, I didn't rep that one on that side as much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But I like jiu-jitsu because it's constant active resist. It's constant problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to come up with solutions that work in real time because you're trying not just to survive me, but you're trying to strangle me actively. And you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, that's a hard problem to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find any benefit to mixing in? Again, I know it depends on kind of where what your goals are, but an MMA style, Muay Thai, like I'm going to do some of this. I mean, does it matter? Like for me with my age, I'm older, it's like, oh, I want self-defense. Should you be learning like some Muay Thai, some boxing and some jiu-jitsu?
I think so. I think that everybody should spend some time learning how to strike for sure and wrestle okay. As well.
So maybe more benefit than someone just focusing strictly on jiu-jitsu. Then I need to find maybe a school that offers some Muay Thai, some jiu-jitsu.
I think it does depend on your goal set. But if you're going, hey, listen, man, I want to be able to take care of myself if some stuff goes down, then I think you definitely need to learn how to use your hands and your feet, and you need to learn how to wrestle. Mm-hmm. At least keep the fight on the feet with your wrestling.
Okay. So how effective is like when people talk about takedown defense? Have you seen it to where if you get a high level black belt and you have a high level striker, can the striker defend himself pretty well against takedowns from a jiu-jitsu player or wrestler?
Yeah. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, for sure. It can happen, but not unless they've learned how to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're going, all right, listen, man, I came up doing boxing. I'm a professional boxer. I never mess around with that wrestling and that grappling stuff, but I know I'm going to win this fight. And then this guy's a wrestler that never had any striking. I'll take the wrestler every time.
Okay.
But if you're talking about a high level striker that has spent time working on making sure that the fight never goes to the ground, he spent time with the wrestlers. This is a different story. This is somebody who's learning how to fight, not how to just strike. Striking is a part of fighting.
Okay.
Grappling is a part of fighting. Wrestling is a part of fighting. But somebody who can do all of those, it can do one of those things well and is competent in the others, they're going to be a real problem for just about anybody.
Yeah. Because you always see that debate between people. And most of the time it's from people who are in one camp or the other. So they're defending their camp.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to, someone who's so experienced as you are, and you've tasted a lot of different styles to be able to say, hey, these are different aspects to the beast of a fight.
Yeah, I'm with jiu-jitsu, not because I think jiu-jitsu is the best one. It's the one I like practicing the most. So it's the one I'm most interested in spending the rest of my martial years investigating, because I feel like there are mysteries yet to be unfolded, So like, I feel like I'm very, very good at jiu-jitsu. I've committed a huge portion of my life and my body to jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel like there's so much more left there. And I can explore it without damaging myself in the same way that I could if I wanted to stay and keep improving as a Muay Thai fighter, for instance.
So you think the bodily breakdown is much more significant?
There's a point of diminishing returns for sure with the striking arts, with the real striking arts.
Mm-hmm.
Now listen, I think there's a lot of value in Tai Chi. I just don't think there's any combat value in Tai Chi. You know what I'm saying? So maybe one day I'm not doing jiu-jitsu anymore. I'm doing Tai Chi. I'm still going to be a martial artist. There's other things to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that I like practicing the most and that I feel continues to benefit me, even as I start to focus on trying to keep my body safer and get hurt less, is Brazilian jiu-jitsu without the gi.
Did you ever consider quitting for either frustration or just time, or were you once you were in jiu-jitsu, you were in it?
Oh no, I've thought about quitting at every belt level. It's hard, man. It's hard, bro.
Yeah.
Especially when I really wanted to be good. I really wanted to be good at this. And so sometimes a loss really, really hurts, or sometimes realizing that, man, I'm not as talented as some of these other guys. I'm going to have to double down and work harder if I want to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to work harder. I thought I was already working my hardest. I guess I'm going to have to work harder. Man, do I want to do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hurt again. Dude, do I really want to put myself through this again? It's a long journey, bro. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll though, baby.
Now, have you ever personally used jiu-jitsu in a street altercation or anything? Have you ever had to practice it, or you've had that, that bestowing of confidence? And
I've almost had to several times, but I just don't. I don't want to get in a fight, first of all.
Yeah.
So and I don't care if you think I'm tough. I'm tough enough for me. So yeah, can I just, first of all, I don't go to bars, so I never get in bar fights. That's easy. That's super easy. I'm undefeated there. Then generally speaking, if there's not alcohol involved, there's not a lot of fighting going on.
No, there really isn't.
So I just don't run across situations that get volatile very often outside of fighting in the gym, which is what I came here to do. So
yeah,
generally speaking, I have, if anything does get volatile or crazy, I try to just play the bigger man there, and I'll let you win. How about that?
It's amazing how
buy you a beer and make that go away for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's amazing how little conflict you have by not going out to bars anymore. Like as kids and stuff, just don't go. Yeah. So it's just amazing how little confrontation you run into on a daily basis. I have had weird little things, like maybe a handful of things in my life where it's
somebody's cranky in line somewhere.
Yeah.
Or it's not too much though.
Yeah, it's rare. And then the one time it was really crazy is a dude tried to carjack us, and my dad was a cop at the time, so he had his gun on him. So he pulled out his gun, and they had a standoff. And it had nothing. I didn't matter what I knew, whether it was martial arts or something else. you're not going to outrun a bullet, or you're not going to like dodge one as you're going in. You're not going to do one of those funny gun disarms that you see on the internet all the time. So yeah, so it's like you said, when you're talking about street fights, it's like just scary. Those times it's happened is scary as shit. And I'm just like, man, I just don't even want to be in that situation.
I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
I know how bad this can go.
Yeah. How do you feel about, I'm really interested in, if you don't want to get into like the political nature of it, totally fine. Police learning jujitsu, you've seen a lot about chokeholds and things, and like people say, oh, we got to ban chokeholds, they can't be allowed. And then you see, I think it was one of the Gracies, because I live in Torrance, so the Gracie school and stuff, and I think I saw one of the videos where he was like, no, they need to learn it at a high level, and it's one of the easiest ways to control someone. You're not having to take a baton to them, you don't have to like use a firearm, and it's going to diminish a lot of the use of force. But there seems to be a huge disconnect when people see a chokehold gone wrong to what it actually you're capable of doing if you know it well. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really every police officer should not just be familiar with jiu-jitsu, but should be good at it.
Okay.
I just can't see an excuse for us to not train them that's the exact thing that they need, is to use the weapons less.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm not a cop, so I'm speaking out of turn here, so I don't mean to offend anyone. I'm sorry if I do. Just know I'm coming from a place of good faith and like where I love you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But they need to use their weapons less, and jiu-jitsu will help them still control someone and use their weapons less. And the higher level and skill level you have as a jiu-jitsu player, the less likely that you're going to have to apply lethal force.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can't see an excuse for everyone not being required to actively. I don't know, man. You got to find an hour a week to get some actual training in with a real school, with a real team.
Yeah.
You have to. There's just no excuse for it. I know it's budgeting, and those guys are super underpaid and underfunded, and in a lot of cases, and under-resourced. So yeah, I would really like for there to be jiu-jitsu training for the officers.
You see a lot. I mean, because my brother actually is a police officer.
Yeah, we got a lot of them out here, man.
Yeah. And it's like, I did it for a short time. And it's just, people don't understand too, like just passive resisting, how difficult that is. If you've never felt that before, like someone's not doing, and this is, you've made this point several times, not doing what you want them to do, even though, hey, I know this cool wrist lock, I'm going to do this.
Be still so I can do this wrist lock on you. What an unfriendly perp you are.
Yeah. So it's like, and I've seen, and I'll speak to it, is like, there's a lot of cops who just have no business being one.
They shouldn't be a cop.
Yeah. Either mentally, they're not good with the conflict. Physically, they're not able to handle themselves. And you just see, like the times people use tasers and they don't go in, and then now the dude starts running at them, and then they're like running away. I mean, it's just like wild stuff that I've seen videos, and it's just like, man, I think it would go a long way if the training and the money was there to make this stuff safer, instead of saying, take it away. Let's invest more so we get better outcomes.
Dude, yeah, I don't know enough. I'm not a very political person, so I don't particularly get invested in one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that if we could find a way to fund Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for our police officers, that we would all get what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not taking a side. It's just like, if you want to like preserve life across the board.
Yeah, we would all get what we wanted.
Yeah.
If all of the cops were purple belts.
Yeah.
We would all get what we wanted. It would be safer. They would have to use less weapons. The cops that means that the funding would have had to increase for them to actually get some real training, which is one of the main things that they want. Yeah, everybody would get what they want.
We're almost out of time, but I just want to hit you up with the last few questions and I'll let you go. If someone's interested in getting into jiu-jitsu or mixed martial arts, whatever it is, if you're looking for an instructor, what should people be looking for a good environment to learn? I mean, you hear a lot of stuff. I had the instructor I had was saying, like, some gyms will, it depends what you're looking for too. kind of like slam you versus, teaching you to run you out, like it's kind of an old vibe of martial arts, like more tough, I guess. What should people be looking for when they seek out a school to learn?
I think if you could just find somewhere where the head coach still spars with the students, then you're going to avoid pretty much all of the issues that come up. Like, I don't like my school for this reason. I don't like if the instructor still rolls actively with the students, he's probably, even especially if he's older, he's probably already kind of let go of some of those egos and insecurity issues, which is most of the problems that come up in a gym is somebody's insecurity, somebody's ego. Oh, he pushes his comp team too hard. Well, it's because he's not out there rolling. He's living vicariously through you guys. And he needs you to win so that he can feel validated because he's not rolling anymore.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Because he's not getting the validation on the mat anymore. He needs people to remember how awesome he is in some new way. And so he's got to push you now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But most of that kind of stuff can just be avoided by finding a coach that still rolls. And then from there, just kind of play it to the vibe that you like. Like our gym, we talk a lot of trash. It's all good spirited, but it's not even like cursing and stuff. It's just like, we're on each other. You know what I mean? Like I was all over you right there, dude. Oh,
that's fun.
Poor Keelan. He couldn't pass my guard again. And then just ribbing him to everything. You know what I'm saying?
I have fun when people talk while they're doing it. Like a couple times I'd roll with a higher belt.
Well, you would love training here, but some places that don't fly. Some people don't like that. You know what I mean? So, I would say first find a coach that still likes to train.
Mm.
And then if you find somebody, unless he's like a crazy person, like trying to hurt everybody, but if he still trains every day, he can't keep that up every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if he's still training all the time, then you just kind of settle down to, well, what's the vibe you like? You like it more laid back, or do you like a traditional, like I like to put my uniform on and make sure some people like that. That's not my way, but some people, that's what they're looking for. They need that part of discipline in their life that helps them in some way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's what you should do. And I try to, if people are looking for that, I try to steer them to some other spot, because that's not how you're not going to like it here then. If you need it to be buttoned down and disciplined, I let the students come and go as they please. Nobody has to bow on and off the mat. You're grown. Just come to class and train. I'm just glad you made it for any reason.
Yeah.
So
now, as a dad, as someone who's achieved excellence in a field, how do you, because the show is the Dad's Doomsday Guy, we cover a lot of stuff from us being a dad's perspective, but how do you juggle family life with pursuing something at a high level? You seem obviously probably to be really busy with everything you got going on. Any tips, advice for other dads, other people looking to either pursue jiu-jitsu or something else at a high level? Like, how do you manage things? And have you learned anything along the way through jiu-jitsu about how to better do that?
Yeah. So, I learned that I can't be the competitor that I wanted to be, and be a business owner, and be a husband, and be a dad. So I just start letting some things go. I wasn't letting go of husband. I'm not letting go of dad.
Yeah.
I'm still going to train every day. So I guess I don't have time to be a competitor then, and live the lifestyle that's required to represent myself the way that I want to. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of the first thing that I had to figure out was jiu-jitsu kind of has to occupy a different spot in my life. I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to spend time. And I'm very lucky because this is actually my job. So, I mean, I made it that way on purpose because this is what I wanted to do. So it's like, well, then I'm just going to try to do this professionally as well as I can. But then the school continued to grow, and this is my wife's job now too. And my daughter works here.
Oh, wow.
My son would work here if he wanted to, but he just doesn't. He wants to do other stuff. But like if he wanted, like I got room for the family to be here. My wife is a black belt. We train together every day. So my daughter, she trains still every day. So for me, it's unfair because I've truly built my life around, I committed myself to jiu-jitsu, and I built my life around it, and I'm passionate about it. So it's easy for me. I'm off balance on purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's easy for me because my wife trains with me.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very well said.
It's what we have to do is we have to get off the map. We have to be like, you know what? We need to get out of here and just go spend some time not doing jujitsu for 3 days. Like, oh God, are you sure? I think we could do it. I think we could pull it off. So it's the opposite problem for me. But it wasn't always that way, you know? So
yeah. No, that's the biggest thing for me too. Is just juggling, because it's a fun, interesting thing. It's like I want more time, because I feel like that's the most important thing in my life. You know, as you get older, you realize that's the most valuable thing. How do I get more time? Well, I can work more, make more money, but then I can kind of circle that into a cycle. Now I'm working more, so I have less time with my family, even though I'm making more money. It's a weird thing to have to navigate, especially if you have passions and things you want to pursue. And it's like, you're right. If you want to, so your plate can only be so full. If you start adding more stuff, you have to take something away. And I've kind of noticed that as I've gotten older. And the same thing as you is like, I'm being a husband, I'm being a dad. So I got to make the other things work. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, talking about this stuff. If people want to know more about you, your videos, like where to find you, where can they go?
Oh, just go to social media, somewhere on social media, and say brandonmc.ninja. If you're on Instagram, you'll find me, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, my website, brandonmc.ninja. If you want to get some free videos and kind of start navigating your way through the beginning parts of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I got you. So
that you do. I have to say,
info, I got you.
Yeah, your stuff is pretty spot on, and it's really interesting.
Thanks,
and you have fun doing it, and it's loose, and it's not like because like me, I'm not super uptight and stuff. So it's like it's fun to see personalities and like people who love what they do. So awesome stuff.
I love it, man, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to do what I do, and it's not lost on me that I'm very blessed and very lucky to be able to do this thing that I actually want to do every day. So thanks to anybody that's listening for allowing me to do that.
Well, thank you again, Brandon. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man, my pleasure.
Bye.